The cargo ship Resilience drifted through the empty space between two star systems. To anyone watching, it looked like just another human trading vessel. The ship was big and slow, painted in faded white and blue colors. Large cargo containers were attached to its hull. Nothing about it looked dangerous or special. Captain Sarah Chen sat in the command chair drinking coffee from a metal cup. She was a woman in her 40s with short black hair and calm eyes. The bridge around her looked normal for a cargo ship. Old displays showed shipping routes and cargo manifests. Everything seemed quiet and boring. "Captain, we have company," said Marcus Webb, the ship's sensor operator. He was a young man with nervous hands who always seemed worried about something. 12 ships coming in fast from the asteroid belt. Sarah put down her coffee cup and looked at the main screen. 12 dark shapes moved toward them like hunting wolves. The ships were sleek and dangerous looking, with sharp edges and glowing weapons. She knew what they were right away. Zephyrian pirates, she said quietly. Right on schedule. The other crew members on the bridge looked at each other. There were only 6 people visible, all wearing simple cargo ship uniforms. They looked like normal space workers, not soldiers or fighters. "Should we send a distress call?" asked Lisa Park, the communications officer. She was an older woman with gray hair who spoke in a soft voice. "Not yet," Sarah said. She touched a small button on her chair that no one could see. Deep inside the ship, hidden systems began to wake up. "Let's see what they want first." The pirate ships got closer. They were beautiful in their own deadly way. Each ship was about half the size of the Resilience, but they moved fast and smooth through space. Red lights blinked along their hulls where weapons were hidden. The lead ship sent a message. A hologram appeared on the main screen showing a tall alien with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. He wore fancy armor with gold decorations. His eyes were bright yellow and looked very proud. "Human cargo vessel, this is Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian Raider Fleet. You will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. Do not resist and you will not be harmed." Veltar spoke in perfect human language, but his voice was cold and commanding. Behind him, other Zephyrians moved around their bridge. They all looked confident and sure of themselves. Sarah stood up from her chair and walked to the communications panel. She pressed a button and smiled in a friendly way. "This is Captain Chen of the merchant vessel Resilience. We're just carrying basic trade goods. Nothing valuable or dangerous. Can we work something out here?" Veltar laughed. It was not a nice sound. "You humans always try to bargain. Your cargo belongs to us now. Your ship will be added to our fleet. This is how things work in this part of space." "I understand," Sarah said, still smiling. "But our company has insurance for this kind of thing. Maybe we can pay you something instead of losing the whole ship." The alien captain looked annoyed. "You waste time with talk. We have destroyed many human ships before. You are weak and slow. Your weapons are toys. Submit now or we will take what we want by force." Sarah nodded slowly. "I need to talk with my crew about this. Can you give us 5 minutes to discuss it?" Feltar's forearms moved in what might have been a shrug. 5 minutes. Then we board your ship and take everything. Do not try to run. Your engines are too slow to escape us." The communication ended. The bridge became quiet except for the soft humming of the ship's systems. Sarah looked around at her crew. They were all watching her and waiting. "Well, that was rude," said Tom Rodriguez, the navigation officer. He was a big man with a beard who looked like he worked with his hands. "No manners at all." "They think we're just scared merchants," added Webb from his sensor station. "Scans show they're moving into attack formation around us." Sarah walked back to her command chair. She sat down and pressed several hidden buttons on the armrest. Throughout the ship, systems that had been sleeping for months began to come online. "Lisa, start recording everything," she said. "Command wants a full record of what happens next." "Already started, Captain," Lisa replied. Her fingers moved over her controls with practiced skill. "All channels are open and recording." "Tom, what's our position?" Sarah asked. "We're exactly where we plan to be," Tom answered. 17 light minutes from the nearest shipping lane. No other ships in sensor range. Perfect spot for this kind of work. Sarah smiled, but it was a different kind of smile now. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that others did not. The Zephyrian ships moved closer. They spread out around the Resilience like a net, blocking all escape routes. Their weapons started to glow brighter as they charged up. Each ship was bristling with energy cannons and missile launchers. "They're targeting our engines and communications," reported Webb. "Standard pirate tactics. They want to disable us, not destroy us." Of course, Sarah said. Dead merchants don't pay ransoms and blown-up cargo ships don't have valuable cargo. The 5 minutes went by slowly. The crew worked at their stations, but they all seemed much calmer than normal people should be when facing 12 pirate ships. They moved with confidence and skill that did not match their simple uniforms. Finally, Veltar's image appeared on the screen again. He looked impatient now. Time is up, human. What is your decision? Will you surrender your ship, or do we need to disable you first? Sarah stood up again. This time she looked directly into the alien's yellow eyes. Her voice was still calm and polite, but there was something harder underneath it now. I discussed it with my crew, she said. We've decided that we don't want to give you our ship. Veltar's expression changed to anger. Then you have chosen to resist. Your weapons cannot hurt our ships. Your armor cannot protect you. We will disable your engines and board you by force. That's your choice, Sarah replied. But I should warn you about something first. What warning? Veltar demanded. Sarah's smile became wider and much less friendly. You made a mistake. You assumed we're just a cargo ship. You never asked what kind of cargo we might be carrying. The alien captain started to look less confident. What are you talking about, human? You see, Sarah continued, the thing about humans is that we learn from our mistakes. Pirates have been attacking our trade ships for years, so we decided to do something about it. She paused and looked around at her crew. They were all ready now, hands on controls that had not been there a few minutes before. The cargo we're carrying today, Sarah said, looking back at Veltar, is justice, without another word. She cut the communication. The main screen went dark, showing only the 12 pirate ships surrounding them in space. Sarah sat back down in her command chair and pressed one final button. Throughout the ship, hidden panels began to slide open. Systems that had been disguised as cargo containers and maintenance equipment revealed their true purpose. Battle stations, Sarah said quietly. Time to show these pirates what happens when they attack the wrong human ship. The Resilience began to change, transforming from a harmless merchant vessel into something much more dangerous. The hunt was about to become very different than the hunters had expected. The bridge of the Resilience transformed in seconds. Panels that looked like simple cargo ship controls flipped over to reveal military-grade weapons systems. The worn displays were replaced by sharp tactical screens showing every enemy ship in perfect detail. Sarah Chen remained calm in her command chair as chaos erupted around her ship. Her crew moved with the precision of trained soldiers, which they were. Each person dropped their act of being simple cargo workers and became something much more dangerous. Weapons systems online, reported Webb from what was now clearly a tactical station. His nervous manner had vanished, replaced by the focused intensity of a combat veteran. All gun ports are opening now. Defensive systems active, added Lisa Park. The gray-haired communications officer was now operating electronic warfare equipment that could jam enemy sensors and disrupt their targeting. Enemy ships are trying to scan us, but I'm feeding them false information. Tom Rodriguez had moved to a station that controlled the ship's movement and positioning. His big hands worked quickly over controls that could make the heavy ship dance like a fighter craft when needed. Hull transformation at 60%, Tom reported. Armor plating is extending. Weapon turrets are deploying. Outside the ship, the Resilience was changing its appearance completely. What had looked like cargo containers were opening up to reveal missile launchers and energy cannons. The ship's hull was expanding as hidden armor plates moved into position. Gun turrets rose from concealed positions all along the vessel. Captain Veltar watched this transformation from his command ship with growing alarm. His confident expression was changing to confusion and then to fear. What is happening? He demanded of his own crew. How is a cargo ship doing this? His sensor operator, a young Zephyrian with shaking hands, studied his displays. Captain, the ship is much larger than we thought. Hidden weapon systems are appearing everywhere. This is not a merchant vessel. That is impossible, Veltar snarled. Humans do not build warships. They are traders and farmers. Their military is weak and small. But the evidence was right in front of him. The Resilience had doubled in apparent size as its true hull configuration emerged. Weapons that could threaten heavy warships were now visible all over its surface. The ship that had seemed helpless was now bristling with deadly firepower. Captain, his communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it on screen, Veltar ordered. Captain Chen appeared again, but she looked very different now. She was wearing a military uniform instead of a simple ship's outfit. Her calm smile had become something that made experienced warriors nervous. "Captain Veltar," she said in a voice that was still polite but now carried the weight of command authority, "I want to give you one chance to leave. Turn your ships around and go away. No one has to die today." Veltar's pride flared up. He was a famous pirate captain. His raids were told about in stories across many worlds. He would not be scared away by one human ship, no matter how many weapons it had. "You think this changes anything?" he shouted at the screen. "We are 12 ships. You are one. Our weapons are proven in 100 battles. Surrender now or be destroyed." Sarah shook her head sadly. "I was hoping you'd be smarter than that." "You had your chance." The communication ended. On the bridge of the Resilience, Sarah looked around at her crew. "Well, people, they made their choice. Let's show them what the Earth Defense Force has been working on." Combat protocols are now active, weapons free. The transformation of the Resilience completed just as the first Zephyrian ship opened fire. Energy beams that should have punched through a cargo ship's simple hull hit military-grade armor plating and were absorbed harmlessly. The human ship's response was immediate and devastating. Hidden missile launchers opened fire first. Dozens of small, fast missiles streaked toward the pirate ships. But these were not normal missiles. They moved in patterns that confused enemy targeting systems. Some split apart in mid-flight, becoming multiple smaller missiles. Others changed direction at the last second to hit ships from unexpected angles. "Enemy point defenses are trying to stop our missiles," Webb reported with satisfaction. "But they can't track targets that think for themselves." The Zephyrian ships fired their defensive weapons frantically. Energy beams swept through space trying to destroy the incoming missiles. They managed to hit some, but many more got through their defenses. The first explosions lit up space around the pirate fleet. 3 Zephyrian ships were hit by missiles that carried electromagnetic pulse warheads. The ships did not explode, but their lights went out as their electronics were fried. They drifted helplessly, unable to fight or run. 3 enemy vessels disabled, Tom reported. "They're alive, but their ships won't restart for hours." More missiles followed the first wave. These carried different warheads, some with kinetic penetrators that punched holes through armor, others with plasma charges that melted through hull plating. The pirates had never faced weapons that adapted their attack method to each target. Captain Veltar watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart by an enemy that should not have existed. His own ship shook as missiles exploded against its shields. "Return fire," he screamed. "All ships concentrate on the human vessel. Destroy it now." The remaining Zephyrian ships turned their weapons on the Resilience. Energy beams and plasma bolts streaked across space toward the human ship. It should have been destroyed instantly under such concentrated fire, but the Resilience was no longer where it had been. The heavy ship had started moving with surprising speed and agility. It twisted and turned through space, dodging attacks that should have hit it easily. "Their targeting systems can't keep up with our movement," Lisa reported from her electronic warfare station. "I'm jamming their sensors and feeding them false position data." "Engine output at 120%, Tom added. "The new drive system is working perfectly." The human ship was not just running, though. As it moved, its weapons fired back. But unlike the pirates, who simply shot at whatever they could see, the Resilience fought with careful planning. Energy cannons targeted the enemy ship's weapon systems, destroying their ability to fight back. Kinetic projectiles hit their engines, leaving them unable to escape. Electronic warfare systems turned their own targeting computers against them, making them fire at empty space or even at each other. "This is impossible," Veltar whispered as he watched another of his ships go dark. "How are humans doing this? Where did they learn to fight like this?" His second-in-command, an older Zephyrian warrior named Kess, looked at the tactical display with growing understanding. "Captain," Kess said quietly, "I think we have made a terrible mistake. This is not a cargo ship that happens to have weapons. This is a warship that was pretending to be a cargo ship." "What do you mean?" Veltar demanded. "It's a trap, sir. They wanted us to attack them. This whole thing was planned." As if to prove his point, the Resilience suddenly stopped running and turned to face the remaining pirate ships directly. More weapon systems emerged from its hull, bigger guns that had been hidden until now. Sarah Chen's voice came over the communication system again, broadcasted to all the pirate ships. "This is Captain Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Resilience. You are facing a Q ship, a heavily armed military vessel disguised as a merchant trader. You have 30 seconds to surrender before we finish this fight. The remaining Zephyrian ships hung in space, their crews trying to understand what had happened to their easy raid. Half their fleet was already disabled or destroyed. Their target had turned out to be more dangerous than their entire force combined. Veltar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. He saw fear there and the beginning of panic. These were warriors who had never met an enemy they could not defeat or flee from. Now they faced something that was hunting them as easily as they had hunted others. "Captain," his sensor operator called out, "the human ship is targeting us specifically. Energy readings are increasing. They're preparing to fire something big." Veltar realized that his reputation, his fleet, and possibly his life were about to end. The humans had set a trap and he had flown right into it. But pride is a hard thing to abandon even when facing death. "All ships," he broadcast to his remaining vessels, "prepare for final attack. We will not surrender to humans. We are Zephyrian warriors." On the bridge of the Resilient, Sarah Chen heard this transmission and sighed. "They just don't learn," she said to her crew. "Prepare main weapons. Let's finish this." The space around the Resilience became a deadly arena. The remaining 8 Zephyrian ships spread out in attack formation, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. They moved with the practiced coordination of a pack that had hunted together for years. Captain Veltar commanded his ships with desperate fury. "Attack pattern 7. Hit them from all sides at once. No mercy!" The pirate vessels accelerated toward the human ship, firing everything they had. Plasma bolts and energy beams filled the darkness between stars. It was the kind of assault that had destroyed dozens of merchant vessels before. But the Resilience did not fight like the helpless cargo ships the pirates were used to. Instead of trying to run or hide, it did something unexpected. It charged straight toward the center of the attacking formation. "They're coming right at us," shouted Veltar's tactical officer. "The humans have gone insane." What the Zephyrians did not understand was that humans had learned to fight differently than other species. While most aliens believed in honor and fair combat, humans had learned that survival mattered more than pride. Captain Chen stood on her bridge watching the tactical display. Her crew worked around her with calm efficiency. They had trained for exactly this kind of situation. "Tom, take us into the middle of their formation," she ordered. "Maximum speed." "Aye, Captain," Tom replied from his pilot station. "Taking us right down their throats." The Resilience accelerated toward the enemy ships. As it moved, its weapons fired in carefully planned patterns. But instead of trying to destroy the enemy vessels immediately, the human ship did something clever. "Deploying minefield," Webb announced from his weapon station. "Electromagnetic pulse mines are active." Small objects shot out from the Resilience as it moved. They looked like pieces of debris, but they were actually smart mines. Each one had its own computer brain and could move around on its own. The Zephyrian ships flew into the minefield without realizing what it was. The pirates were focused on the big human ship and did not notice the small objects floating around them. "Now," Sarah said quietly. The mines activated all at once. Electromagnetic pulses filled space around the pirate ships. The energy waves disrupted their electronics and caused their systems to fail. 3 more Zephyrian vessels went dark as their power systems were overloaded. "Impossible," Veltar screamed. "How are they doing this?" His remaining ships tried to regroup, but the Resilience was not finished. The human ship had passed through their formation and was now behind them. It turned around with surprising speed for such a large vessel. "Launching swarm missiles," Webb reported. "All tubes firing." This time hundreds of small missiles erupted from the human ship. They moved like a cloud of angry insects, each one thinking for itself. The swarm split apart and came at the pirate ships from every direction at once. The Zephyrian point defense systems tried desperately to shoot down the incoming missiles. Energy beams swept back and forth through space. Some missiles were destroyed, but there were simply too many of them. What made it worse for the pirates was that the missiles were smart. When the defensive guns fired at them, they would dodge and weave like living things. Some would pretend to be hit and stop moving, then come back to life when the guns turned away. Their defenses can't handle distributed targeting, Lisa reported from her electronic warfare station. The swarm is overwhelming their ability to track and fire. The missiles reached their targets. Explosions bloomed along the hulls of the pirate ships. But these were not random attacks. Each missile knew exactly where to hit for maximum effect. Some targeted weapon systems, destroying the pirates' ability to fight back. Others went after engines and power systems. A few carried special warheads that created holes in the ship's hulls, letting air and atmosphere leak out into space. 2 more Zephyrian ships were destroyed completely. Their hulls cracked open and spilled debris and atmosphere into the vacuum. The rest were badly damaged and struggling to keep fighting. Captain Veltar looked around his own bridge. Half his control panels were dark. Smoke filled the air and several of his crew members were injured. His proud warship was dying around him. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his surviving officers. "3 still fighting, Captain," came the reply. 2 others are drifting but still alive. The rest are gone. Veltar could not believe what was happening. His fleet had been one of the most feared in this part of space. They had captured dozens of ships and defeated every enemy they had faced. Now they were being destroyed by a single human vessel. The Resilience moved through the battle like a shark among fish. Its weapons fired with precise timing, hitting exactly the right targets at exactly the right moments. The human ship seemed to know what the pirates would do before they did it. "Captain," his sensor operator called out weakly, "the human ship is moving into position for another attack run. They're targeting us specifically this time." On the human ship's bridge, Sarah Chen studied the tactical situation. The battle was almost over, but she wanted to make sure the surviving pirates understood their situation completely. "Webb, load the kinetic harpoons," she ordered. "Let's show them what happens when you bring energy shields to a kinetic fight." "Kinetic harpoons loaded and ready," Webb replied. Targeting the lead ship's main reactor, the Resilience fired weapons that the Zephyrians had never seen before. Instead of energy beams or explosive missiles, it shot solid metal rods at incredible speed. The rods were simple pieces of dense metal, but they moved so fast that they carried enormous destructive power. The Zephyrian shields were designed to stop energy weapons and explosives. They were useless against solid objects moving at such high velocity. The kinetic harpoons punched through the shields like they were not there at all. Veltar's ship shook as the metal rods hit its hull. The impacts sent vibrations through the entire vessel. Damage reports flooded in from all over the ship. "Hull breach in Section 7. Engineering is reporting reactor damage. Life support is failing on decks 3 and 4. The proud pirate captain realized that his ship was dying. Worse, he was beginning to understand that the humans had been playing with them from the beginning. Every attack had been carefully planned to disable rather than destroy. The humans could have killed them all in the first few minutes if they had wanted to. "They're not trying to destroy us," he whispered to himself. "They're studying us, learning how we fight." As if reading his thoughts, Captain Chen's voice came over the communication system again. "Zephyrian vessels, this is your final warning. Surrender now and prepare to be boarded. Any ship that continues to fight will be destroyed." Veltar looked at his remaining ships. 3 were still able to fight, though badly damaged. 2 were drifting helplessly. 7 were completely destroyed. His fleet was finished. But surrender was not something a Zephyrian warrior could accept easily. It went against everything they believed about honor and strength. "Captain," his second-in-command Kess said quietly, "we cannot win this fight. The humans have weapons and tactics we have never seen. If we continue, everyone will die." "We are Zephyrian warriors," Veltar replied through gritted teeth. "We do not surrender to anyone, especially not to humans." On her bridge, Sarah Chen watched the enemy ships and waited. She had seen this kind of pride before. Some enemies would rather die than admit defeat. She hoped these pirates would be smarter, but she was prepared either way. "Captain," Webb said from his station, "enemy ships are powering up their remaining weapons. I think they're going to try one last attack." Sarah nodded sadly. "Then we'll have to finish this. Target their engines and life support systems. Let's end this quickly." The Resilience prepared for the final phase of the battle. Its most powerful weapons began to charge up, ready to deliver the killing blow. The humans had tried to give their enemies a chance to live. Now that chance was running out. In the depths of space, surrounded by the wreckage of his fleet, Captain Veltar made his decision. Pride and honor demanded that he fight to the end. But as he looked at the faces of his surviving crew members, he began to wonder if pride was worth their lives. The moment of final choice had arrived. Captain Veltar made his choice. Pride won over wisdom, as it had for so many warriors before him. His yellow eyes burned with desperate fury as he looked at the human ship that had destroyed his fleet. "All remaining ships," he broadcast to his surviving vessels, "prepare for final assault. We will ram the human ship. If we cannot defeat them with weapons, we will destroy them with our sacrifice. On his bridge, the surviving crew members looked at their captain with mixed expressions. Some showed the fanatic loyalty of true believers. Others appeared afraid but ready to follow their leader into death. Set collision course, Veltar ordered his pilot. Maximum speed. We will show these humans what Zephyrian honor means. The 3 damaged pirate ships turned toward the Resilience. Their engines, though badly damaged, pushed them forward in a final desperate charge. Behind them, the 2 drifting vessels tried to follow, but their power systems were too damaged to move. On the bridge of the Resilience, Sarah Chen watched the enemy ships begin their suicide run. She had hoped it would not come to this, but she had seen desperate enemies make this choice before. "They're going to ram us," Tom reported from his station. "All 3 ships are on collision course." "I can see that," Sarah replied calmly. She touched a control on her command chair. "Lisa, are you recording everything?" "Every second, Captain," Lisa confirmed from her electronic warfare station. "Command will have a complete record of this engagement." Sarah looked around at her crew. These people had served with her for 2 years, preparing for missions exactly like this one. They had trained together, learned together, and become a family of sorts. Now they faced the ultimate test of their skills and equipment. "Webb, what's the status of the Hellfire drive?" she asked. Webb's hands moved over his controls as he checked systems deep within the ship. "All systems green, Captain. The experimental plasma torch is ready for combat use." "Good," Sarah said. She had hoped not to use their most secret weapon, but the pirates had left her no choice. "Prepare to fire on my command." The Hellfire drive was humanity's newest and most dangerous weapon. It had started as an emergency propulsion system, a fusion torch that could push a ship to incredible speeds when normal engines failed. But human engineers had realized it could be used for something else entirely. By focusing the plasma stream and adding magnetic containment fields, the fusion torch became a directed energy weapon of incredible power. It could cut through the heaviest armor like a knife through paper. The energy output was so enormous that it could destroy multiple ships with a single shot. The problem was that it had never been tested in real combat. This would be the first time anyone had fired the Hellfire drive as a weapon. "Target the lead ship first," Sarah ordered. "Then sweep across the other 2. 1 shot should be enough." The Zephyrian ships accelerated toward them. Even damaged, they were fast and dangerous. In a few minutes, they would crash into the Resilience with enough force to destroy both hunter and prey. Captain Veltar stood on his bridge as his ship raced toward destruction. The human vessel grew larger in his view screen with each passing second. He could see its weapons tracking his approach, but he no longer cared. Death in battle was better than surrender to inferior beings. 30 seconds to impact, his pilot reported. "Hold course," Veltar commanded. "Let them see how Zephyrian warriors die." On the human ship, Sarah Chen watched the collision timer count down. She waited until the last possible moment, wanting to be absolutely certain of her targets. The Hellfire drive was too powerful to waste on a miss. 15 seconds to impact, Tom reported. "Should I take evasive action?" "Negative," Sarah replied. "Hold position." "Webb, prepare to fire." "Hellfire drive is charged and ready," Webb confirmed. His voice was steady, but his hands were tense on the controls. Target lock confirmed on all 3 ships. The pirate ships filled the main screen now. They were close enough that individual weapon ports and hull markings were visible. Sarah could almost see the faces of the aliens who were trying to kill her and her crew. 10 seconds to impact, Tom announced. Sarah Chen had commanded warships for 15 years. She had fought pirates, rebels, and hostile aliens across a dozen star systems. She had never hesitated when lives were at stake, and she would not hesitate now. "Fire," she said quietly. Webb pressed the firing control. Deep within the Resilience, the Hellfire drive activated. The fusion reaction that normally pushed the ship through space was redirected through magnetic fields and focusing lenses. Instead of spreading out behind the ship, the plasma stream was concentrated into a narrow beam of incredible intensity. The weapon fired with no sound in the vacuum of space, but the energy release was visible from thousands of kilometers away. A lance of pure plasma, hotter than the core of a star, reached out from the human ship toward the attacking pirates. The beam hit Veltar's ship first. The pirate captain had just enough time to see the brilliant light filling his view screen before the plasma cut through his vessel like it was made of paper. The ship's hull, armor, and internal structure simply ceased to exist where the beam touched them. But the Hellfire drive did not stop there. Sarah had ordered Webb to sweep the beam across all 3 targets, and that was exactly what he did. The plasma lance moved from left to right, carving through each attacking ship in turn. The destruction was complete and instant. The 3 Zephyrian vessels were not just destroyed, they were vaporized. Where 3 proud warships had been charging toward their enemy, there was now only glowing gas and scattered debris. The energy release was so enormous that it lit up the entire area like a miniature sun. The 2 drifting pirate ships, still several kilometers away, were caught in the edge effects. Their hulls were scorched, and their remaining electronics were fried by the electromagnetic pulse. On the bridge of the Resilience, the crew watched in awed silence as the weapons' effects faded. Where their enemies had been, there was now only empty space and cooling plasma. Direct hits on all 3 targets, Webb reported unnecessarily. Complete destruction confirmed. Sensor. Sweep shows no remaining threats, added Lisa. The 2 drifting ships are still intact but completely powerless. Sarah Chen sat back in her command chair and let out a long breath. The battle was over. The Zephyrian raider fleet that had terrorized this shipping lane for months was gone. But she felt no satisfaction in the victory, only relief that her crew was safe. Tom, take us to the surviving ships, she ordered. We need to check for survivors and gather intelligence. As the Resilience moved toward the drifting wrecks, Sarah thought about what had just happened. The pirates had underestimated humanity as so many others had done. They had seen humans as weak traders and farmers, not understanding that those same traders and farmers could become deadly warriors when threatened. The Hellfire drive had worked perfectly, but Sarah hoped they would never have to use it again. The weapon was too powerful, too final. It left no room for mercy or second chances. Captain, Lisa called from her station. I'm picking up emergency beacons from both surviving ships. Life signs detected. Looks like about 30 Zephyrians still alive between the 2 vessels. Any of them trying to communicate? Sarah asked. Negative. Their communication systems are down. But the beacons are broadcasting standard distress calls. Sarah nodded. Even after everything that had happened, she would not leave enemies to die in space if she could help it. That was one of the things that separated humans from pirates. Prepare boarding parties, she ordered. Full medical and rescue gear. These aliens just learned a hard lesson about attacking human ships. Let's make sure some of them survive to tell others about it. The Resilience moved through the debris field that had once been a proud pirate fleet. Scattered pieces of metal and plastic drifted in the vacuum, all that remained of 7 destroyed warships. In the distance, emergency beacons blinked steadily from the 2 surviving vessels. Inside those ships, Zephyrian pirates who had started the day as confident predators now waited to be rescued by the very humans they had tried to destroy. The galaxy was about to learn a new lesson about humanity. The lesson was simple but important. Do not mistake kindness for weakness, and do not attack a human ship unless you are prepared for the consequences. The hunt was over, and the hunters had become the hunted. The aftermath of the battle was quiet and somber. The Resilience moved slowly through the debris field, its searchlights cutting through the darkness to illuminate the scattered remains of what had once been a feared pirate fleet. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the ship's cargo bay, watching her crew prepare for rescue operations. They worked with efficient professionalism, setting up medical equipment and preparing spacesuits for boarding the damaged enemy vessels. How many survivors did we confirm? She asked Chief Medical Officer Janet Ross, a woman in her 50s who had served on both military and civilian ships throughout her career. 31 Zephyrians still alive, Dr. Ross replied, checking her medical scanner readings. Most have injuries from the electromagnetic pulse effects and structural damage. A few are in critical condition, but they should all survive if we get to them quickly. Sarah nodded. Do it, full rescue protocols. Treat them like any other beings in distress. 2 hours later, the survivors had been brought aboard and were receiving medical treatment in the ship's converted cargo hold. The Zephyrians were a proud species, and even injured and defeated, they maintained their dignity. Most refused to look at their human rescuers, staring instead at the walls or floor. One exception was a young Zephyrian named Vex, who had served as a sensor operator on one of the destroyed ships. Unlike the others, he watched everything the humans did with intense curiosity. "Why are you helping us?" he asked Dr. Ross in heavily accented human language as she treated a burn on his arm. "Because you're hurt and need help," she replied simply. "That's what people do." Vex looked confused. "But we tried to kill you. We destroyed your cargo. We would have taken your ship and sold your crew as slaves." Dr. Ross paused in her work and looked at the young alien. "That was your choice. This is ours. Humans don't abandon people in space, even enemies." The conversation was overheard by other survivors, and word spread quickly among them. The humans were not just militarily superior. They followed a code of behavior that the pirates found difficult to understand. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen was in her quarters writing her after-action report. The document would be transmitted to Earth Defense Force headquarters and distributed to military commands throughout human space. Engagement Summary. EDF Vessel Resilience. Q-Ship Mission 7 Enemy Force. 12 Zephyrian pirate vessels under command of Captain Veltar. Result: complete destruction of enemy fleet. 11 ships destroyed, 1 ship disabled. 31 survivors recovered. Human casualties, none. Mission assessment success. Anti-piracy operation proceeded according to plan. Hellfire drive performed within specifications on first combat test. Recommendations: deploy additional Q-ships along major trade routes. Current intelligence on Zephyrian fleet capabilities confirmed accurate. Suggest increased coordination with civilian shipping to identify future targets. Sarah paused in her writing and looked out the small porthole beside her desk. In the distance, she could see the lights of a commercial shipping lane, where normal cargo vessels went about their business, unaware of the battle that had just taken place. The report would reach Earth in a few days. From there, it would be distributed to other human colonies and military bases. But Sarah knew the real message would spread much faster through different channels. 3 days later, the Resilience reached Kepler Station, a major trading hub that served dozens of species. The station was enormous, with docking bays for thousands of ships and markets that sold goods from across the galaxy. The surviving Zephyrian pirates were transferred to the station's medical facility and then to temporary holding cells while arrangements were made for their return to their home worlds. But before they were locked away, they had time to talk with other beings on the station. Vex found himself in conversation with a Talarian merchant who traded along the same routes where the pirates had operated. The human ship destroyed 11 warships by itself? The Talarian asked in amazement. It was not really a cargo ship, Vex explained. They called it a Q-ship. It was a military vessel disguised as a trader. We never had a chance, but how did they fight so well? Humans are supposed to be weak. Vex thought about what he had seen during the battle. They fight differently than we do. They use tricks and deception. They hit us with weapons we had never seen before. And when we tried to ram them, he shuddered at the memory of the Hellfire drive. What happened? The merchant pressed. They have a weapon that turns ships into light. 3 of our vessels charged them, and in 1 second they were gone. Just gone. The story spread quickly through the station. Merchants, traders, and travelers carried it to other systems. Within weeks, the tale of the human Q-ship that destroyed an entire pirate fleet was being told in bars and trading posts across dozens of worlds. But the story changed as it traveled. Some versions said the humans had dozens of hidden warships. Others claimed they could destroy planets with their new weapons. A few even suggested that all human cargo ships were actually disguised battleships. Captain Reldon of the Hegemony Navy heard the story while refueling at a border station. As a professional military officer, he was more interested in facts than rumors. How reliable is this information? He asked the station commander, a grizzled human named Martinez. Very reliable, Martinez replied. I saw the gun camera footage myself. The EDF released it as a warning to other pirate groups. Want to watch it? The footage showed the battle from the Resilience's point of view. Reldon watched in professional appreciation as the human ship systematically destroyed a force that outnumbered it 12-1. Impressive tactics, he admitted. Your people learn quickly, Martinez smiled. We've had good teachers. Being the new species in the galaxy means everyone underestimates you at first. We decided to use that to our advantage. Similar conversations were taking place across human space and beyond. The intelligence services of various governments began reassessing their files on human military capabilities. Trade organizations updated their shipping insurance policies. Pirate groups held emergency meetings to discuss new threats. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Military leaders studied the tactical records that had been recovered from the surviving pirates' personal equipment. What they learned changed their understanding of human warfare completely. "They do not fight with honor," complained General Korth, the planet's defense minister. "They use deception and trickery. They fight to win," corrected Intelligence Director Yas, a more pragmatic officer. "Honor is a luxury for those who can afford it. The humans are still building their space forces. They cannot match us ship for ship, so they use their minds instead. What do you recommend?" asked the Prime Minister. "We treat human space with the same respect we show the hegemony or the alliance," Yas replied. "No more raids on their shipping. No more assuming they are easy targets. The humans have shown they can be as dangerous as any species in the galaxy when threatened." Back on the Resilience, Captain Chen received updates on how news of their mission was spreading. The ship had returned to its patrol route, once again disguised as a simple cargo vessel. "Intelligence reports that pirate activity in this sector has dropped by 70%, Webb reported from his station. "Seems like word is getting around." "Good," Sarah replied. "That was the whole point. Better to scare them away than have to fight them." Tom looked up from his navigation console. "Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Fleet Command." "Put it on screen." Admiral Harrison appeared on the main display. He was a stern-looking man in his 60s who had commanded human naval forces for most of his career. "Captain Chen, congratulations on a successful mission. Your engagement with the Zephyrian pirates has had effects far beyond what we originally planned." "How so, sir?" Sarah asked. "Shipping insurance rates for human cargo vessels just dropped 15%. 3 different alien governments have opened formal diplomatic channels to discuss trade agreements, and we've received applications from over a dozen species who want to hire human ships as escorts for their own convoys." Sarah smiled. "I take it Command is pleased?" "Very pleased. We're authorizing the construction of 12 more Q-ships based on your design. And Captain, you're being promoted. Congratulations, Commodore Chen." After the communication ended, Sarah looked around at her crew. These people had followed her into battle against overwhelming odds. They had trusted her judgment and proven that humans could hold their own against any enemy. "Well, people," she said, "looks like we've got a new mission. Command wants us to take the Resilience to the Outer Rim. Apparently the Syndicate pirates out there think they can still prey on human shipping." Webb grinned. "Do we get to keep pretending to be a cargo ship?" "Of course. That's the best part of this job." Lisa laughed from her communication station. "I'm already receiving distress calls from merchant ships in the Outer Rim. Seems like our reputation is preceding us." Tom plotted a new course on his navigation system. "Course laid in for the Rim territories. We can be there in 5 days." Sarah settled back into her command chair and picked up her coffee cup. Outside the ship, the stars wheeled slowly past as the Resilience changed course toward its next assignment. In the depths of space, other pirate groups monitored the human ship's movement and updated their own plans accordingly.